It is 4 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. Please stand to sing O Canada. Please be seated. And I'll ask our clerk for the roll call.
Mayor Sue Patterson,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Warren Dickert.
Present.
Councillor Harold Fleet has sent his regrets. Councillor Dave Hawking.
Present.
Councillor Carol Hudson.
Present.
Councillor Brandon Cable.
Present.
Councillor Susan Sackle.
Present. Thank you. The land acknowledgement. As we work toward reconciliation with Indigenous people, we begin our meeting today by respectfully acknowledging that we are situated on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe Nation, the people of Three Fires, known as Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations, and further give thanks to the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash, now known as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, as the traditional keepers of this land. So welcome to our special council meeting. It is Thursday, December 4th, 2025. Good afternoon, council, staff, guests, the viewing public, and the media. Council, does anyone have a disclosure of pecuniary interest or a conflict of interest? Deputy Mayor Dickert?
I would declare an interest in item 6.3 as I have a family member employed by the Hanover Police Service.
Thank you. And of course, if you realize you have a conflict, you can declare it at any time during the meeting. Item 5, we do not have any agenda additions or deletions. So we're going to move right into item 6, which is our budget amendments. And the process is similar to our normal motions. I will ask for a mover and seconder. Then I will ask for the appropriate staff member to give a high overview and then go back to the mover, ask for any comments, and then open it up to council. So the first one is 6.1, the Asset Management Coordinator Financial Analyst position, moved by Deputy Mayor Warren Dickert and seconded by Councillor Hudson. And I'll ask Yelena to give us an overview, please.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship. The asset analyst, financial analyst position is included in this year's budget because Hanover is now facing financial decisions that are too complex and too costly to manage without proper analytical capacity. This recommendation for this role directly aligns with the organizational review approved by Council, supports our asset management plan capacity, and responds to the strategic plan's clear commitment to building a long-term financial strategy. More importantly, it addresses the real challenge that we as staff face, and that is in communicating to Council the ability to make informed, sustainable financial decisions without being able to provide you with proper analysis, appropriate forecasting, and long-term planning. And right now, we simply don't have the capacity to do that. At the moment, Hanover does not have a long-term reserve forecast, a long-term debt forecast, a long-term capital forecast, or a fully integrated 10-year financial outlook for the town. So what I presented at the budget meeting was simply for the asset management plan. It was prepared by consultants. We have nothing for the town as it relates to our growth commitments, as it relates to the rest of the financial obligations that we have as a town. So this means that sometimes we make decisions without knowing the long-term affordability impacts. Council sets strategic priorities with the best of intentions, but without the proper financial analysis up front, we often don't realize whether those priorities are affordable until we reach the budget process. So we saw that this year with the org review being approved earlier, the 2 positions identified in the org review are now being considered in the amendment process. The same thing with the asset management plan. It had stated certain required financial commitments, and those are also being discussed at the amendment process for the budget. So having this analyst role would provide the clarity needed to make informed decisions the first time around, ensuring that priorities are realistic, affordable, and deliverable. And in the context of growth and significant capital expenditures, this clarity is, I respectfully submit, not a luxury. It's a necessity for staff to be able to present council with sufficient information to make informed decisions that impact the town's financial health over the long term. That is all I have.
Thank you. And now I'll turn to Deputy Mayor Dickert.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Yelena. As we went through the budget, simply looking for places that we can cut some costs. I don't argue the value of the role and the need for it at some point in time, but I do think that it's something we've done without for a while. The asset management plan is new. I realize that, but I would still like to see that deferred until 2027. And, we do have some changes where we've gotten rid of the Saugeen mobility work. We've gotten rid of the launch pad work. Granted, there will be some added work with boundary adjustment if it comes to fruition. However, that work should be temporary for the most part. So I would still like to see this deferred at least till the 2027 budget.
Thank you. I am in favor of including the asset management and financial analyst role in the 2026 budget. The town owns millions of dollars in assets, roads, trail bridges, water and wastewater systems, buildings, parks, vehicles, and equipment. An asset manager's role will be to ensure these assets are maintained, repaired, and replaced at the right time, maximizing their lifespan. Also, an asset manager will link infrastructure needs to long-term budgeting. This helps council make informed decisions and prevents the current and future councils from inheriting a backlog of failing infrastructure, which is what we are going through right now. Why we need to increase the tax levy by 4.2% annually from 2026 to 2035. By tracking condition, performance, and criticality, an asset manager helps us identify risks before they become emergencies. An asset manager will also help ensure the municipality meets its legislative obligations. And many federal and provincial infrastructure grants now require comprehensive and current asset management plans. With an asset manager, we are better positioned to compete for and secure grant funding. An asset manager will have the full picture of the entire municipality's assets rather than each department working in silos. That in itself is a benefit. And with the proposed mutual prosperity agreement with West Grey, bringing in 1,600 acres into the town, it gives the town the ability to make both short-term and long-term decisions, especially when planning decisions are so critical, including infrastructure decisions, when and where they will be extended into these lands, and how development can be phased in over the coming decades. This is not going to happen in just 5 years. This is going to happen 5, 10, 15, 20 years out, and we need to be ready for it. We need to be efficient. This initiative is long-term planning, and we need to manage this effectively as it is phased in, along with ensuring our current assets are maintained, repaired, or replaced, all within a long-term financial plan. Other comments? Councillor Hocking.
I am opposed to the amendment, and you've highlighted some of my points, but most recently, we just fulfilled our obligation to expand our community, hopefully by the purchase of 1,600 acres. And I'd just like to read for the record the conclusion of the report that I read. Without this additional analytic support, the development of a comprehensive long-term financial sustainability strategy will be delayed. It doesn't say may, it says will be delayed. And the town's ability to manage growth-related pressures, which we hopefully get through our expansion, and the legislative requirements will remain constrained. In short, failing to add this position will hinder the town's ability to plan ahead, protect its financial stability, and ensure that future decisions are, number one, informed, number two, sustainable, and align with the council's long-term vision. So I think it's a short-term pain when you realize that the net to the tax base is $22,783. All we need is for this position or this person who's in the position to be successful in one project of grant support, and that would pay for that salary 100 times over. So I'm against the amendment too. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cable.
Thank you, Your Worship. I am in favor of supporting the amendment. I do think that it's an important role, and I do think that it's something that can be looked at in 2027. I think that in 2026, there's a lot of planning that needs to take place, whether it's through the official plan amendment, depending on how the boundary adjustment conversations go. And then hopefully with the finance department being settled by the end of 2027, we'd be in a better position to analyze this going forward. I also think that we know that our water and sewer rates are currently not funding operations fully. And if this position was to be removed, we would be in a better spot in order to address that gap.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Hudson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm also in favor of this amendment, and I do have a question regarding the how the distribution of the percentage for 60% water wastewater and the 40% tax based, how that was arrived at. I'm not familiar with how that came to be. If you could explain that.
Through you, Your Worship, the distribution is based on the approximate amount of work done on water, wastewater related assets versus roads. So the majority of our infrastructure in dollar value and also in terms of asset management need. So that's all of the infrastructure that's missing condition assessments, for example, sits in water, wastewater, which is how we gauge that. But it is very approximate in the first year. So it's something that'll have to be monitored.
So we've directed it that way. It hasn't been passed down from anyone. Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Sackle.
Thank you, Your Worship. I simply want to say that I'm not in favor of this amendment. I think this is an important position, and I think it's been expressed quite nicely by Yelena. Thank you, and yourself as well as Councillor Hocking.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Okay, I will call the vote. All in favor of the amendment? 1, 2, 3. Those opposed? 1, 2, 3. A tie vote, and with a tie vote, it is defeated. So it does not move forward. Okay. All right, so we'll move on to the second one, which is Councillor Hudson with the Asset Manager Coordinator Financial Assistant. And I'm going to speak to Vicky on that. Do we move forward with it, or as it is slightly different, do we still move forward?
My opinion, based on the new legislation under strong mayor powers, is because it is a slightly different motion and each amendment is to be considered separately, that this motion could move forward if there was a mover and seconder for discussion.
Okay, we've already heard the overview. So Councillor Hudson, you will move it. Is there a seconder? Councillor Cable. Councillor Hudson, you wish to speak to it?
Well, I think a lot has been already said about this. I just think as well, with all the transitions that are happening, for you to take a certain time frame to figure out your workload, who's doing what jobs before this position actually comes to fruition, would make a little bit more sense. And then to defer it to next year when you've got everything solidified within your departments.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Chris?
To comment to Councillor Hudson, the necessity has been there for years. We have just been scratching the surface with the current assets. There's been no follow-up, no long-term forecasting, no conditions. If it stays status quo, you will just be receiving information that mimics the current AMP, the Asset Management Plan, checks the box that we provided report on the Asset Management Plan with no real changes. And every 5 years, you will be going out to another consultant to satisfy the legislative requirements. We have been requesting for years for help with assets. And only during the organizational review was it finally brought up front and center to the council the necessity for this position. We have been limping along, just getting by on checking the box legislatively that we at least look at the AMP once a year, and it's mostly at year end and just before the budget. We will continue to be reactive in all things asset management rather than proactive, whether you have a new transition of people or not. Whether I was staying on or not, I have been asking for years for this position for help. Just thought I'd bring that up.
Thanks, Chris. Other comments? Okay, I will call the vote, and this is similar, that council defer the hiring of the asset management and financial analyst. Those in favor? 3. Those opposed? 3. That motion is defeated as it was tied. All right, so we're on to the third amendment. And this is that the Hanover Police Service Board be requested to reduce the operating budget by $70,000. Moved by Councillor Hudson. Is there a seconder? Councillor Cable. Okay, Councillor Hudson, as we don't have the, I can speak a bit to this, as can Councillor Hawking, but please go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. In just in the in investigating some of the comments that were made by Police Chief, that we have sort of maintained an even line with, sorry, I'm gonna lose it here. With the amount of calls, thank you, calls for service and the amount of prisoners, it's sort of flatlined over the last year. They did actually retain another part-time constable to help the existing police constables. And we do have an awful lot of things coming up with the new police station build. And I just feel that we need to have a little bit of compromise with some of the financial impact that that is going to create.
Thank you. I can share with the strong mayor powers. I did ask the police and the library to each find 1% on their budget, to reduce it by 1%. And it was difficult for both the library and the police. And if this was to move forward, we do not have, as the town, the municipality does not have the authority to approve or disapprove specific items in the budget. All we can do is ask to reduce by a certain amount. But I will say, if the municipal police board is not satisfied that the budget established is sufficient to provide adequate and effective policing, the board and the municipality may jointly apply to the commission chair to appoint a conciliation officer to attempt to resolve the matter, or the board may give the municipality written notice referring the matter to arbitration. That's in the Councillor Hawking.
Thank you, Worship. I oppose this amendment simply because we've already been through the process line by line and found over, I believe, $45,000 in savings. If we eliminated the hiring of one police constable, you know what's going to happen is our chief and deputy chief are going to have to go into serve and build up extensive financially feasible. I feel very confident in the police due diligence as far as coming in with a responsible budget. So I will not be voting for the amendment.
Thank you. Other comments? Councillor Cable.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just wondering in terms of, I know that we can't direct where this $70,000 would come from, but just wondering in what month was the 16th police officer hired this year? Do we know what month that happened in? Was it January? Was it August?
Elections serves me correctly. Earlier, but it was delayed. I don't know if I'm correct on this, and the mayor can say yea or nay, but I think with our current potential force, we will be in the same situation that the town was back in 2014. So it's long overdue. So it's to provide good safety for our citizens. And am I correct in saying that's, Mayor? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I'm just going to check. Tanya, do we need to pause? Technical difficulties. Got the thumbs up. We're good to go. Other comments? Councillor Cable.
Thank you, Your Worship. And so if the 16th officer was hired in the fall, so we're talking about a couple of months ago, is the 17th officer proposed to be in next fall? Do we know when that is currently budgeted for?
My understanding it's early summer, right? July 1st. So
it's really
Through
only-
Your Worship, if I could, it's July 1st because it's set that they need to get up to 20 officers. So it's to do half of a new officer each year. And so the last year, then you hire, then it'll only be an impact of half of an officer in the fall, in the year that you actually reach the 20. So then the following year you'll have the 20. So it was just a way to make sure that it was done that way. Because they need to have it in July. If they wait till the fall, then they can't get into the fall training. So you have to get them on board in order to get into that training.
And if I might ask one more question, Your Worship, I believe that the last set of police board minutes referenced a projected surplus for 2025, and just wondering if we knew approximately how much that might be.
I'll turn to Chris for that, or Yelena.
Because there is an officer that has been budgeted for in 2025, but is on long-term disability, that's why there will be some savings there. Can't very well say any more details on that, but there'll definitely be well over 100,000. Let me just check. I gave a forecast to the police department. Assumption would be they would almost have, what would you say, about 200,000, 270? About 279. They'll have a surplus. So we're hoping that if they take that money, that they will come back as they did the previous year and have that money go towards a future police station, as they did the previous year.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. And certainly, as I did mention, I do support the idea of reducing the budget for next year, and certainly I am in favor of local policing. I think that it is a great asset to Hanover. I think we just have to make sure that it's also sustainable, and looking at kind of what our expenses are compared to the income that's coming into the police service, and just making sure that everything is aligned. And I really feel like that's where Councillor Hudson was trying to get to, was just trying to align that a little bit better. So I certainly do support that. I would also wonder if at some point in time we could get perhaps a longer term projection on policing costs going forward, if the idea is that we are going to be adding an officer a year, which I know has been discussed. I guess it's at what point does the police board and council work together to ensure that that is financially feasible for the community, whether it has to be every year or whether there's an option to perhaps be more sustainable in adding an officer every 2 years, every year and a half, to see what that might look like.
Thank you. So I can comment that the chief has spoken many times about the difference that is happening with the calls for service, in that they are more involved with investigations. My thought was, could we hire one person that would handle the investigations? But the officer that is on call is the one that sees it from start to finish, and also goes to court. So there is no savings there. And Chief Knoll has many times said that the service has been running underserviced with the number of officers. And as Councillor Hawking said, both the deputy and the chief have been filling in, and that is not feasible. It just isn't. A chief should not be going out on calls. He has other duties, right? So, but he has said right from the beginning, we need to up the service to 20 officers because of the types of calls. The other thing that's has been quite concerning is that the Walkerton Court is now holding, scheduling 4 trials a day. So that involves an officer every time, and they do not get through 4 trials. So even though the officer may be sitting there all day long and the trial doesn't come up, he has to go back at the next scheduled time, and it cannot be someone different. So policing is changing, and they have to follow their regulations the same. And you rest assured, the board talks about finding savings, but it's very tight. You can ask our finance people. We've gone through it line by line, and I shouldn't tell you this, but I asked if they needed bullets every year. Like, are there savings anywhere? And they've looked at it all. So, all right, anything further? I will call the question. as in, will I get this right here? Oh, that the Hanover Police Service Board be requested to reduce the operating budget by 70,000. All in favor? 1, 2. Opposed? 1, 2, 3. That motion is defeated. So we'll move on to 6.4. That is the new police service building from Councillor Cable. So did you want an overview or you'll just start? I think we'll just start and then we'll ask once we hear the full, okay? So moved by Councillor Cable and seconded by Councillor Hudson. Go ahead, Councillor
Thank you, Your
Cable.
Worship. So the proposed amendment is to spread the new police service building tax increase over 4 years instead of 3. When the project was initially proposed, it was a 3-year tax phase-in. Council adjusted it so that year 1 was not a third in the last budget cycle in order to assist with the fact that the fire station was still coming on board. The proposal is that the remaining balance would be spread out over 26, 27, and 28, which would then lower down the annual levy increase for those years and would result in an annual savings of around $87,400 or 0.89%. I am hoping that staff can comment on some of the logistics around the 4-year phase-in, as it would not be my intent to postpone the project.
Thank you. So I'll turn to Yelena, and at the same time, my question, which is similar. If it's spread over 4 years, is in the 4th year, are we delaying or stopping other capital projects because we've now gone from 3 to 4 years? It's all yours, Yelena.
Thank you, through you, Your Worship. The construction timelines wouldn't be impacted by changing the levy impact of the repayment requirement. So we've budgeted a repayment requirement of $650,000. Once we get to that point, until we get to that point, between the point of construction being finished and us paying for construction and us having that $650 in the tax levy, we'll be borrowing from reserves. So spreading it out over a longer period of time does not impact the construction timeline at all, but it does require us to borrow from our reserves for a longer period. And that ties into Mayor Patterson's question as well with regards to what that then means for other work. So borrowing from our reserves to fund the debt repayment or the debt, the debt repayment for the police station will mean that we can't use those funds for other capital work.
I guess if I can just clarify, I'm envisioning this to be similar to the fire hall build. And so essentially, would it be that we'd be having a construction loan of some kind as the build is going forward? And then that would be taken into long-term debt when the project is completely finished. Is that, I guess I'm not entirely sure when we say we're borrowing from reserves, whether you're referring to we're borrowing the entire construction cost and then financing it, or whether we're talking about we're borrowing the difference between the 650 and say that we were at 470-ish in the last year.
Through you, Your Worship, it would be the difference between the 650. Well, it would be the difference between the 650 and the 470-ish, but it would also be, if it's a construction loan, then we're just paying interest. So it'll be the interest on top of that as well. So it wouldn't be necessarily 650. It would be higher than that. Sorry, that was very convoluted, but the construction loan is basically the repayment of that is just the interest piece. So the final, like the 650 is based on principal and interest blended.
Okay. If I can hop in there to help out. Temporary loan that we did for the fire hose because we were waiting on the FCM funding. If the whole the police station is built and it's done and you need that 8.8 that we had originally budgeted for, you're going to borrow and get that, and you're going to start making the payments. However, if we don't have 650 in our tax levy to repay that, you're only going to be paying the 4-something, and then you're going to be borrowing the 100,000 from a reserve and paying that back over the years. So that makes it difficult. The other option is that was a 20-year term. You could say let's go to 25 years, and then you could do that right away with the amount that you have at that time. Because again, you can borrow for a longer term. What you don't want to have is your term longer than the ability for that asset to be in use. Obviously, the police building is going to be a lot longer than 30, 35 years. So you could go up as high as 30 years if you wanted to. So that could keep that tax rate down, except keep in mind, the longer you do the amortization, the higher interest that you're paying overall. But there are ways around it. But what Yelena was talking about was you're going to borrow for the whole amount because it's all done. You're going to pay back that on a yearly basis, but if you don't have it budgeted, you're going to take it from your reserves in the interim. The downside is that now you're taking that money out of the reserves. That allows your borrowing capacity internally for other projects to be reduced.
Other comments, questions? Okay, I'll call the question, and that is that the new police service building tax levy increase be spread over 4 years instead of 3 years. All in favor? 1, 2, 3. Those opposed? 1, 2, 3. That is tied, so it is defeated. Okay, the next one is 6.5. No, yes, 6.5. Councillor Cable, this is the communications coordinator position. So I need a mover and seconder. So we have Councillor Cable, seconded by Deputy Mayor Dickert. And does someone want to speak to that from staff? April or Sherry? Okay.
Thank you, Your Worship. So council previously approved through the organizational review, which identified the need for a communications and community engagement coordinator as part of phase 2 of the recommendation. The new role will centralize and professionalize town communications, ensuring consistent branding, proactive messaging, and improved engagement with residents and stakeholders. Currently, communications responsibilities are fragmented across departments, creating inefficiencies and inconsistent messaging. This position will report to the economic development manager, being myself, and further support the role in growing strategic initiatives while leading corporate communications and community engagement. So as reflected, the original proposal recommended a March 1st, 2026 start date with an estimated cost of $71,800 for salary, benefits, and training. Starting in March was identified as a way to ease financial impact this budget year. The amendment proposes deferring the start date to July 1st, 2026, reducing 2026 costs by $30,000, with $27,000 reflected in the tax levy, which is approximately 0.28% decrease. So operational implications: if implemented in March, the town gains immediate capacity to centralize communications, improve proactive messaging, and support strategic priorities. Deferring to July delays these benefits and introduces some challenges. So essentially, the coordinator would start in the thick of our summer events season. So Canada Day, Music and Square, Culture Days planning, and other high-profile promotions. As well as it is a municipal election year, so that will enhance communications as well in 2026. So we also need to consider that with the onboarding and training needs in our consideration of what that start date looks like and when all of those activities will be implemented. Compressed timelines limit the ability to establish a comprehensive work plan and build relationships internally and externally. And then the town risks continuing with fragmented communications during a peak engagement period, reducing effectiveness and delaying progress on council's strategic priorities. So essentially, in responding to your Councillor Cable's rationale, the rationale for the deferral is to ease the tax levy by spreading costs While financial prudence is important, delaying the start postpones critical improvements in communications and engagements identified as priorities in our organizational review and strategic action plan. So the March start date was designed to balance financial impact while ensuring readiness for summer events and proactive engagement initiatives. So waiting until July means the coordinator begins during those busy season months without adequate preparation. So that then limits our ability to deliver in the intended benefits within that calendar year. Thank you.
Thanks, April. Councillor Cable?
Thank you, Your Worship. Certainly, I think that there's support around the table to have a person who's dedicated to communications. I think that that's something that was identified in the strategic plan, and certainly something that we know is going to be a great asset to the town of Hanover. I think the trickiness becomes that, we know that our current levy increase for 2026 is 8.3%, which is significantly high. And so essentially, I'm looking for a way that we can bring that levy down. I was very happy to see that pushing it out a few months would give us a 0.28% decrease. That still keeps us over 8, which I would be. That's a tricky one to swallow if we end up with all these amendments and we still end up over 8%. But that was really my thinking, was that we're pushing it out. We're still getting the roll in July of this year. We can see how that works. If summer if it's not an ideal start time and September would be better, we can certainly look at that. But that really was the intent, was in order to still introduce the roll in 2026, but have a lesser impact.
Thank you. Councillor Sacco?
Thank you, Your Worship. I appreciate your remarks, Councillor Cable, about the savings. But again, I really appreciate you, April, telling us why the start date was so important to you. I have worked with you before I even was on council with Cultural Roundtable, and I sit on the Economic Tourism Culture Committee. You are a one-woman department, and I know how important this position is for you and your department. I was just at a DIA meeting this morning, and they were complaining about communication, not getting the word out, dealing with the whole, what we're doing on Saturday. And I thought to myself, I think we really need this position.
Thank you. Other comments? Okay. So the motion is that the hire date for the Communications and Community Engagement Coordinator be delayed to July 1st, 2026. In favor? 1, 2, 3. Opposed? 1, 2, 3. That's tied, so it's defeated. Item 6.6 is the amendment that the former JDSS sewer rehabilitation be deferred until further advancement of the property is scheduled. Moved by Councillor Hudson, seconded by Councillor Cable. Andrew, you'll give a highlight, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, this is the sanitary service that currently runs through the JDSS property. This has been on the docket a few times over the years, and quite honestly, trying to time up the work with the redevelopment of the property itself. As we know, as council knows, there's been a lack of development of that property. This is an ongoing issue, so to speak, that town staff continue to try to time a sanitary replacement that is currently undersized with the timing of the building redevelopment. That is the proposal before you here today. It runs along Fifth Ave from 7th Street to 5th Street through the JDSS property. It affects about plus minus 100 residents if it were to be compromised, or if there ultimately was an issue.
Thank you. Councillor Hudson?
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, particularly what Andrew said was what my intent was, that there's been a stall on this property advancement. So to keep the money into reserves, I know there's no impact on levy with this one, but to keep money in reserves that we seem to be dipping into considerably would probably be a good thing.
Other comments? Councillor Cable.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess I just want to confirm. So the way that it currently sits in the budget, the dollars are available. If the property is not developed in 2026, then those funds will not be used. And then this will be brought forward again at a future year. Is that correct?
Through Your Worship, yes, that would be my intent.
Other comments or questions? Councillor Sacco.
Thank you, Your Worship. So Andrew, what is the latest development on that? And when was the last time you spoke to him, and where are we at with that project?
Through Your Worship, I speak to them, every 8 weeks, 8 to 10 weeks. And I'd say that's about the last time I had spoke with them. They, again, have some concept plans, and they have a professional planning firm that they're working with, that we've been in contact with. But, it's just an assumption every time I speak to it until we see a formal planning application in front of us. So, yes, maybe a little bit more clarity from a staff perspective on what's happening in future with the project, but really until we see something tangible, just limiting the public information.
So explain that again for me, that if this is defeated as like not approved, the money is set aside specifically for this, but it is not going to occur if there's no development. Okay. Other comments or questions? Okay. Deputy Mayor, or do you want to hear Chris first? Chris?
Right now, it's budgeted to come from sewer fees. If you want to pull this out of the budget, it would just then be sitting as a deferred capital project to come forward at a further date. However, if it does come up in 2026, Andrew would have to bring a report, and then you basically would ask for those funds to come out of reserves. If it stays in the budget and it's coming from sewer fees and it's not being used, he will get that report at the end of the year, says fees were not used. We were to have this money transferred to reserves, the sewer reserves, to be used at a future date. And that's exactly what it would be done. Either way you do it, it doesn't matter. The money stays in the sewer area.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. And thank you, Andrew. Just so I understand this better, it's a sizing issue. It's not a condition of this sewer. And it's the 100 or so attachments to it that could have a backup if there's something doesn't go right. But the actual condition of it isn't terrible at this time.
Through Your Worship, part of that's some of the gap in the asset management information that we have. A lot of it's age-based, and that's partially an age-based one. So on age, it's starting to reach its end of life. In terms of maintenance, there's been, I would say, somewhat limited maintenance on it, but it is undersized for the amount of connections that continue to be on it upstream.
And again, my intention with all of my amendments was tax levy. If this isn't affecting the tax levy and it gets us in a safer position to serve our customers, I would have to say that I would just as soon see it proceed.
Other comments, questions? Okay, so let me read this again. The motion is that the former JDSS sewer rehabilitation be deferred until further advancement of the property is scheduled. All in favor to defer? 1. Those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is defeated. Item 6.7, will I get this, my notes here, is the construction of 2nd Street from 14th Avenue to 18th Avenue be deferred. Moved by Councillor Hudson, seconded by If there's no seconder, the motion does not move forward to be considered. I'll ask one more time. Is there a seconder? So that motion is not going to be considered. Thank you. Sorry, we'll move on to the next one. So we're on 6.8, and this is that the Trails System East Loop Development, which is 24th Avenue and 14th Street, be deferred. Moved by Deputy Mayor Dickert and seconded by Councillor Hudson. And Laura, you'll do an overview, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Hanover Community Trails is a key cultural asset and plays an important role in our town's well-being. Our community trail system supports healthy living, promotes active transportation, supports our tourism, and potentially provides positive environmental impacts through conservation and by providing opportunities for our users to appreciate the natural environment. This project marks an exciting milestone where the proposed community trail development can transition from years of planning into that implementation phase. The primary objective of this project is to enhance the existing community trail system by providing that much needed extension or loop, as we've been calling it. Currently, the existing trail dead ends due to the construction of the Saugeen Cedar West housing development. The proposed trail loop project will extend the main trail to create an active transportation opportunity using trails, roads, sidewalks, and allowing trail users to continue their journey to 24th Ave. This extension will significantly improve accessibility and connectivity through the community. As the site, the project itself has evolved. As the site progressed, the project also evolved. And I also will note that this land is within the SVCA regulated area as well. So how the big evolution within the project was after the SVCA review, it resulted in a much larger culvert at that 22nd Ave A. And there is now a 4-foot elevation increase from that base trail to the 22nd Avenue A. And to accommodate this change in grade, this was the addition where pedestrian ramps are required on either side of the roadway, so 2 in total, 1 on each side, in order to accommodate that elevation change. The ramp is to be constructed of hot dip galvanized steel decking with safety railing as well for users' protection. There has been a bit of confusion about the area. So I have a map. Okay. So we can either put that up on the screen or I can do it personally on a large one that we've printed out, whatever is probably, or maybe both, just to go over that. My challenge is I'll try and just use this mic while I'm up speaking, if that works. Okay. Okay. We'll make this work. Okay. So this right here is County Road 28 or 24th Ave. Right now, this location is where it currently dead ends, right about here. I'm sorry, you guys can't see it, but if you're looking on screen. This section here is the new trail that's being proposed through here. The ramps would be, this is the 22nd Ave A, right through the middle here. Yep. So this is County Road 28 or 24th Ave. Right here is the section where we dead end. This area is the new proposed trail, and 22nd Ave is right here, where the ramps would be on either side of that road. I also will note this, so now we've crossed over County Road 28 or 24th, and this area here is the area that requires rehabilitation. This is the old rail trail. And then this area is very easy to distinguish because of the back and forth. That is the switchback that is currently constructed. So this essentially is your full loop. Okay. Do we leave it there? So I will note that there is some grant money that is impacted with this project. The best way to describe it, because there is essentially two phases, the rehabilitation as well as the new construction. There is a grant funding that's 30% funding. So if that helps put it in perspective. So based on the rehabilitation, that's been estimated at about 24,000. So that kind of gives you an idea of the split between the project on the east side versus the west side. I think that concludes what I wanted to say about the project, and certainly open to questions. And hopefully that map has helped clarify for folks.
Deputy Mayor Dickert.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you, Laura. So the 47.8 is for both sections, really. It's, if you don't do one, you lose the whole thing, you lose part of it. How does that really work out?
Through you, Your Worship, I have not approached the grantee in order to ask that question. I suspect that if the work is still continued as per the grant of either section, that they would just claw back what we don't continue with to build it.
And what is the probability of that trail being completed this year, or pardon me, in 2026? The section in behind, I guess it's down below those retaining walls, I think. What's the probability of that happening this year?
Through your worship, now that we actually have a defined location, which has been really the hiccup, now that that's in place, 85%.
Based on losing, or the potential of losing the funding, and sounds like a very high potential of it actually coming to fruition, I would withdraw my motion for this one.
Now, wait a minute. We do have a mover and a seconder. Do I just ask the seconder if they're in favor of withdrawing?
That would be correct.
And the seconder is Councillor Hudson. Was that a yes? You're in favor of withdrawing?
I'll be in favor of withdrawing.
Thank you. Okay, so withdrawn on that one. Getting to do all kinds of different things. All right, so then now we move on to 6.9. So this motion is that the trail rehabilitation east of 24th Avenue be included in the 2026 budget, including the developer's share, and that trail construction on the south side of the Cedar West subdivision be deferred. And this will be moved by Councillor Cable and seconded by Deputy Mayor Dickert. So we've had the overview. Yeah, you want to speak to it, Councillor Cable?
I do appreciate the clarification that was provided by staff, and certainly I understand the implications of the grant, and I believe that the developer is also paying a portion of the costs. So I will also withdraw the motion.
Deputy Mayor, you will withdraw the seconder. Thank you. So that is withdrawn. So that is all the amendments that were sent in to our clerk. Are there any amendments from the floor? Seeing none, we do not have a closed meeting. And we have one further motion, and that is to adjourn. But before we do that, next steps. Who wants to do that?
Thanks.
Yelena, good.
So the next steps would be if there were amendments that were passed, you would have your window to veto any of those amendments. I'm pretty sure nothing has passed though. Am I doing that right? Nothing has passed. So the budget is deemed approved. What's the word, Vicky? Deemed passed. Adopted is the word at the end of this meeting.
Do you want us to summarize where we're at? During our meeting on November 25th, we were at 8.3, but however, Mayor Patterson brought forth that there was changes to the SVCA of about $5,500. And Councillor Hawking brought us in the actual amounts for the SMA, and it was $700 less. So that came in at an 8.24% levy increase, which is an impact of 7.77% on the tax rate. For the average household of around $220, that's $192.35 a year, $16.03 a month, or less than the cost of a big jar of coffee or whatever that is, or whatever those jugs are, or 53 cents a day.
And if I may, Chris, did we not come in at 7.7 last year?
We were at 7.7 last year was our actual levy, so we're slightly higher, but you also have a large impact of that AMP that you have added. And last year, our 7.7 worked out to a blended rate of around 5.8%. 90% education rate is not going to change, but we have no control over the rest of the areas, such as the county, so.
Councillor Hawking, did I see your hand?
Yes, thanks. I was just wondering if we could get that summary sent to us so we have it. Just what Chris just summarized there. Please and thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Dickert?
Thank you, Worship. Have we received our final assessment information? Like we know that number is exact?
It just came in and it's just slightly a little bit more assessment, not a lot. Just so you're aware, because as I've mentioned many times to council, there's so many things that make up the tax bill. We have no control over the assessment or the ratios. The ratio itself being switched on the multi-residential down to the last year, being down another 0.25%. With our growth, small growth, we would have brought in about 109,000 more levy. But because of that switch from the multi-res, we're only up $42,000 in growth. So this is the last year. So next year, it'll be all across the board. That won't have that big impact. You'll actually be able to take the actual growth and go with it, which will be nice to see. And what was your other question?
Well, I just wondered if the final numbers had been in. The other evening I heard from a mayor in one of the other municipalities that they just got their final numbers that day and it was actually a little better than they had planned, but I just didn't know if we had our final numbers.
We just seen them this morning. MTE was looking at the information that they were providing to us, and it was just slightly higher, wasn't a lot. Big change to us. We didn't have a lot of growth.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, so one final motion, that is to adjourn at 5:04. Councillor Hawking and Councillor Sackle, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you.